Good boy.
I got him.
Nan is so proud of you. You did that all by yourself. Like 5, 6 times already. 7 times.
Actually, it's been 8 times.
Yeah, there you go again. 8 times. 8 times in a row you've been sitting up. Good boy, Amari. Yeah, and Andre's proud of you. Yeah. Okay, so now it's same day, right? Only later. October 15th, 2021. And these are these sproutable green peas, right? I got 2 bags, 25 pounds, okay? And these are sproutable too. These come in from the States. I pay good money to have them delivered, all right? Those are where the great northern beans come from. And these are whole red lentils, and they're sproutable, right along with, I don't know if these are the same ones, but I've got other ones coming in the mail too. Yeah, I bought 2 of them, because sometimes you have to buy in smaller bags. These are 5-pound bags, so I only bought 10 pounds from this particular company. But with Organic Matters, I ended up buying other ones, and they're in the mail now. So, well, shipping, right? They'll be here in a minute. Well, not in a minute, but within a day or 2 or 3. And then, mystery solved. The kidney beans, at this point, appear to be real. Because you can see, they sprouted. Okay, and that's what, 2 days? Not even 2 days? So, okay, what that little plastic thing was, I don't know. Where it came from, I don't know. So, in this situation, because they're fine, oops, I don't know where I put that, oh, here it is. I'll just cover them back up, and then, I don't know, I'll try and cook them up later. Maybe tomorrow. Right? We'll let them grow for a bit more, and then I'll cook them. Because you have to cook them, otherwise you'll poison yourself. You don't eat raw beans. Okay? These ones are mine. Now, mind you, they're thicker. They're a more hardier bean. So, and they're older. But they're thicker, so it might take them a little longer. So we'll just leave them and see what happens. Right? And then this is the Great Northern Bean, and there's a root right there. You can see. You see, that's a root. Okay, so some of them are rooting, some of them are not. But what I'm finding is, do you see what's happening here? Okay. Now, maybe these ones you don't require so much. I don't know how they can say they're sproutable because they're actually spoiling. But then I saturated them. So, see here, this one's growing. Alright. So, these ones are a little more sensitive. Right? And then this is a chickpea. It's supposed to be organic as well. Oops, I dropped it. It's supposed to be, or you see, look what's happening. How can that possibly sprout? Yeah, it can't. So, I am going to be much more careful. See, I did it again. And I'm putting hardly any pressure. So, I don't know how they can say they're sproutable outside of I may be sprouting it the wrong way. But from what I can tell, I don't know. And they stink. So they spoiled. So those ones are going in the garbage, and I'm going to try it again, and maybe not so saturated. Hold on. Okay, so I did, like I said, I bought 2 more bags. I couldn't get them at 15 pounds. I could only get them at 10 pounds. So I settled on buying 2 more bags because I like the way this bean cooks up. Oh, you can't see it right now. I really like the way this bean cooks up right? Obviously, it's organic. It says where you order it that it's sproutable, so I'm obviously doing something wrong at this point. And then I got 12.1 keys, which works out to times 2 because I bought 2 bags. That was the only way I could do it. So I got 25 pounds of the sproutable peas, and I basically, honestly, people, more than anything, I bought them for Amari. So I'm going to really try and incorporate these regularly into his diet weekly. Okay, that was one of the reasons why I bought so many. And if I can get them to sprout and they cook up nice, then I'll order more. Just like I ordered these. These, I really like the way they cook. And like I said, I'm excited to work with them. But I don't understand why they did that and spoiled as fast as they did outside of their organic. So I'm going to try it again in terms of trying to sprout them. And if I'm not successful, then what I'll do is I'll just write the company an email and I'll ask them what I'm doing wrong. And maybe they can tell me. Outside of that, I really like these beans. And that's the company. It's an American company. So I have to pay good money to have it shipped to me, right? And then now we're going to get into jars because I ordered more spices because I said I was going to give my kids spices for Christmas this year. And I've already told them that, so I kind of have to stay true to my word, right? And then this is the peas, right? I already got one jar in a box downstairs. This one goes in my cupboard over there with the rest of the big jars with all this stuff that I have. And, right? And then I'm going to get myself a nice mason jar. Give myself a mason-sized jar, right? So easy to hopefully work with it weekly. And then the rest will have to go into another jar somewhere else, right? And then if I can get them to sprout and grow and they taste good, then I'll buy more. That's what I'll do, right? So hold on. Okay, so I think it's now October 16th, 2021. As you can see what I'm doing here, as usual, I got one more case of these coming in. Now remember, I got 3 cases for free because Amazon, I don't know, instead of refunding me for one jar, they refunded me for the whole order. So I really do appreciate that. And then, but before that even happened, I had already ordered the last 3 cases that I could find because I like these jars. And currently I'm just storing spices in them. Different kinds. We know that. So I took that other 12.5 keys of the northern white bean and I put them in the jars here because I have one under my little cubby there. And then of course I've got mine, in a mason jar. I'm going to get into my cubby and I'm going to fill this up. You can see it's a little short, right? And then when I get downstairs, I'm going to open up all the boxes and all the lids, and I'll be throwing in oxygen absorbers all at one time, closing up these lids, putting them back in the boxes, and then putting the boxes away. Okay? And then going and getting them as I need them. So when you empty out a jar, you take your jar, you go downstairs, you find the box that you need, and you take out the full one and put the empty one on the inside if you haven't already filled it up with something else. Okay? I don't know how I'm going to sprout these yet because I wasn't impressed as to how they sprouted, but then I probably wasn't doing it correctly. So hopefully these will live up to their name because I really, really like them. And then now I'm just working a little bit here on, that Christmas present for my kids, right? And I've got more spices coming in the mail because I have to buy. Because one I want for myself as well as I'm giving my kids a little bit, right? Because the other ones are in storage. Because 1 pound basically fills up 1 jar. Okay? Maybe not so much these things, but definitely when you're getting into, this is just ground pepper, right? Handy fill, shaker grind, It's already grinded up for me. I have one jar kicking around, but this one is definitely going into long term. And then at some point, all those jars downstairs, if I hadn't already vacuum sealed them, then I'll be using oxygen absorbers with them as well, all at one time, lids on, and then it sucks it down, or I will be vacuum sealing them downstairs, because just trying to move this along. I'm trying to not be annoyed with myself. These smell really, really good. Okay, the more you can find things like this, lasts forever. So anyway, again, it has medicinal purposes, right? Worst comes to worst, you can use it for bartering. Right. So I'm going to start filling up my jars. You can see I've got some there. Okay, hold on a minute. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Even though it's in a little flimsy plastic bag, when you cut it into it and you start pouring, you can really smell it, eh? So, I wanted to say that, I don't know, my landlords have, taken an interest in me. They're concerned about my eyesight. So they're, offering to pay for me to go see the eye doctor. And I'm like, well, as far as I know, it's not that simple in terms of, going to go see the specialist. You have to get a referral from your family doctor. Anyway, my landlady, she gave me a number to, they're just an optometrist. They're not an eye specialist. They can check my eyes, they make glasses, but apparently they can give you a referral for an eye specialist. They offered to pay for that, but I should be covered for that through my medical, right? So, I told my landlady, before you start paying for me to go see the eye doctor, let's do something about these lights. Right? Because that's the big one. Not only do they hum, and it really irritates my ears, and the ones downstairs hum, but we all know that fluorescent lights like this isn't good for people. Go away, Mickey. As if you know I'm doing a video. What is it with that cat? So, anyway, go away, get out of here. and then they offered to pay. They came by today. Yesterday they had their son come by, a handsome guy, looks like his dad, right? And his wife. They came and they I've been living here all these years. That's the first time I ever met that man. I said, really? You're my landlord's son? Oh. I met another one, but this one I never met. And anyway, they gave me turkey and whatever, right? Because they had dinner. Okay, and then, my landlady called him up, telling me to call this number and go see the eye specialist and she'll pay for it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll call. So I called and they want $85 and I'm like, well, I should be covered. I don't know, if you want me to pay a little extra money, then I suppose I'll pay that. I don't expect my landlords to pay for that, people. I really don't. Especially when I'm doing stuff like this. Alright? But it turns out that I guess these doctors, these optometrists, they can forward you to the specialist. So, if that happens, it's because of this stuff. It's in my hand. I'm right in the middle of the... Oof. It's almost like a synonym, only stronger. Yeah. And then these ones, you grind them up in your little mortars. I have marble mortars. I have this one, which is a nice little metal, right one? You can hear it. And then I've got wood ones. Oh boy. I tried to tell him that it's more than just my eyes. It's this pressure and this ringing in my ears, which honestly I think it has to do with root canals. You know? I have 2 up in here. They did one over here. It doesn't have a cap on it. It's $1,400 to put a cap on it. And I got to go do something else yet. But the one from when I was 16, this one up in here with the dead tooth, that's why that tooth is discolored. Because it's dead. Right? There's 2 of them in there. But they did, you know, root canals. And I'm like going on 60 people. And those things were done when I was like 16 years old or something like that. I think that's where some of this stuff comes from, right? And I have mercury in my mouth. So anyway, then they came by today and they gave me fig jam, okay, which I'm sure Amari will really like. And you know, they're going on about, did you call? Did you call? And I'm like, yeah, I called. And now I'm waiting to see first if, you know, if I if I'm covered. Because if it's that easy, then I can go to any optometrist that will take my health care. And, you know, I mean, if they can give me a referral to go see this specialist without having to go, I don't want to say beg my doctor, my family doctor, but it kind of boils down to that, doesn't it, right? Then, I mean, obviously I'll do that, right? I didn't know I could do that. I thought everything had to come from my family doctor. That's what I was told. So, and then today, they were, you know, they brought me the fig jam. That was the quote-unquote excuse. So we're out there, and did you call? Did you call? And I'm like, yeah. And, oh, you know, no, and it's, you know, it's not, because my landlord has glaucoma, and he had cataract surgery, and he was trying to tell me that it's pretty straightforward, and it's not as, you know, don't be scared. And I'm like, yeah, but, you know, I was told that if I get that, right, I can't be outside in the sun for a year. And I'm like, how the hell am I going to do that? And I went like this to the yard, right? Oh, you know, just wear glasses. And I'm like, oh, oh, okay. But, like, realistically, people, can you see me outside working and fucking with glasses on? I don't know how that would work. But I guess I'm getting to the point where I don't have too many options now in terms of the deterioration of my eyes, whether it's related to cataracts or whether it's related to the glaucoma, which I have really big dark spots. I know that for a fact. And, you know, all this pressure and shit, right? And then they offered to pay up to $400, because that's what they cost, between $300 and $400, for the second in line lens. They said, don't take the free one because it's hard. And I'm like, okay, for cataracts, right? You know, the softer one. It's about $300-400. And then they offered to pay for that, and I'm like, you know, I mean, like, really, honestly, before I let them do that, like, I'd be like, no, we need to fix this. But they tell me that my eyesight, if I go with my eyesight, then, you know, I basically become useless, right? You know, I have no life. I'm very dependent and at the mercy of. But at the end of the day, you know, it's been how many years it's been like this? Right? And then I said, well, before you help me with anything, I was going to write you a letter, you know, but now that you're here, I told them I was going to write them a letter, because we want to help you, you know, and they're talking about eye stuff, and I'm like, you know, I'm running around practically crying here, people. Oh, I have been crying. You just don't see it, right? And, like with ShaMay, I woke up crying, and I'm still crying after all these years, people. Okay? And, you know, since they're offering to help me, you know, help me where I really need it, so that I'm not a burden for you, or I don't want to say guilt trip, but basically, when it comes time for me to leave this house, right? Because, you know, I told them I was going to write them a letter and give it to Mrs., you know, to my landlady at the end of the month when she came to pick up rent, talking about, if you want to help me, this is where the best place you can help me. And that would be help me to get a lawyer. And then I proceeded to tell my landlord, who I don't get to see very often, exactly what I'm up against and how I've been trying to fight for my family and stand up for my family, and, you know, and told him about Uncle John and how I filed a lawsuit against Fraser Health and CIBC Bank, and how I was treated in court and why I was treated that way, what happened with the appeal for the, you know, the waiver of fees so I can go in front of a 3-panel judge, and how that was, you know, I was taken advantage of because I didn't have a lawyer. How lawyers, you know, injury lawyers and those types of individuals, you know, they don't want to take on cases like mine or Amari's people, because all they want are car accidents, because those are the ones that bring the big money fast. So that leaves me with no options, which ultimately puts me in a position where I become targeted with my family. And I explained this to them, and I explained it to them that it went as far back as, well, right? We'll just take it from when the BC Liberal government was in power, and then in 2003, they illegally cut me off of welfare with 5 dependent kids. Okay? Because of that targeting. And that's basically what it all boils down under, right? And they're like, ooh, that's a lot of money, you know, and ooh, we know, you know, my landlady said, oh, take it to, you know, legal aid. And I'm like, you can't ask legal aid to help you when you're suing a government. Oh, pro bono. And I'm like, you can't, because they're all crooks, pretty much, right? You know, they're not, right? They're not there to, maybe a car accident, but then you'd have 25 lawyers banging on your door saying, pick me, pick me, pick me, right? But injure a child at birth, they don't want to touch it. Illegally harvest organs, they don't want to touch it. This is what I told my landlords, okay? Like I said, you do realize we have individuals out here committing very heinous crimes. I can prove it, right? I just have to go in there by myself, knowing that I'm going to be walked all over, right? So if you really want to help me, you know, help me find a lawyer. You know, if you can help pay a little bit for that, the lawyer will get back the money and give back to you. You'll get back your money. Because the government probably won't want to take it to trial. They'll want to settle out of court. But can you see me trying to settle out of court by myself, people? As they're still casting God knows what kind of psychological warfare tactics at me? Assuming that I'll be able to see anything in front of me by that time? But even if I'm blind as a bat, I'm still going to show up. I told him I filed a freaking court date for a trial, with or without a lawyer. And, you know, the subject of the house came up there briefly, and I'm like, yeah, well, you know, if this shit ain't settled with what's going on, with what's been happening with my family, when it comes time for you to sell your house, maybe then you can afford to help me get a lawyer, because otherwise I'm looking at the street, right? Because I was outside, they were in their car, right? My landlord is 82 and my landlady is 81. They're the ones, anyway, so I'm like, well, you know, when the time comes, because of pressure from the property developer to sell this house, then maybe, you know, you can help me to get a lawyer then, financially. Right? In the meantime, because otherwise, I'm looking out, that's what I get. That's what I get, people. I get the fucking streets. They, you know, my landlord's looking, and I'm like, yeah, there, you got it. That's what we're looking at, okay? And they know it. That's the thing. They know that whatever's happened in the economy in the last 10 years or so has really created a huge divide. The only thing is, they're not on my end of that divide. They're, established, right? And so, but yet at the same time, it's kind of frightening. But then on the other hand, I can kind of understand why maybe they wouldn't be concerned about it. And where I'm going with this one is, nobody really seems to be too concerned that Uncle John was medically kidnapped. I told him I had power of attorney. I had enduring power of attorney. So whatever the fuck Fraser Health thinks that what it was doing, it was a crime that they committed, people. Okay? They facilitated the medical kidnapping of Uncle John to assist in the theft of his assets. Okay? I can prove that. The only thing is I can't get in front of a fair judge. Right? And, with the way things are right now, let me get focus here, okay? With the way things are right now, you would think that an 82-year-old and an 81-year-old would be very concerned about what happened to Uncle John. Because if they end up in the hospital for any real length of time, they're going to be treated just like I'm going to be treated with Amari. In other words, when I take Amari to the quote-unquote hospital, I'm only allowed to go by myself. I'm not allowed to have Tisha with me, nobody with me. They've really isolated me down into a very, as far as I'm concerned, precarious position. And then when, because it's already been designated, when they cut into Amari, right, to do hip surgery, only one person, quote unquote, is allowed in the room for the week. Although I've already spoken to staff and I've been told that there is a little bit of room for allowances in there, because I said a whole week with me in a room, I don't know. I don't think I could have that kind of stamina by myself with no support yet of any other family members, knowing what I know, people. And what I've already been through, people. You see, my landlords, they haven't had to experience any of that, because their culture is already well established in the community, where the majority of the medical of kidnapping of the elderly is happening within, I would say, the Caucasians with their homes. I said this before, they twist an ankle, they go to the hospital to get it checked out, and they never leave. If those so-called workers in there think that they can keep that individual, force that individual to sell their property to go into long-term care. That doesn't really happen within the Punjabi community, because of the structure of the way they run their households, in terms of they don't put their elderly in old folks' homes per se, right? They keep them at home with them and just ride it out to the bitter end, right? Where a lot of Caucasians and a few Asians and a few Punjabis, maybe they'll let them go into old, not maybe, but they do. They like Caucasians, when I was in with Uncle John at that temporary care ward, the majority of them were all white people. When Joan was in long-term care for that year, it was all white people except for one Asian woman and one blind South Asian woman. The rest of them were all old white people. Okay? So I know they can't really relate because it's not something that they face, but then yet at the same time, they're being, are they being treated differently? I don't want my battery to run out. Are they being treated differently in the hospitals in terms of who's allowed to visit and who's not allowed to visit if one of them should get sick and end up in a room, whether it's an ICU room or, you know, in terms of, you know, ICU, or whether it's in just a hospital room. Or what about when they go into temporary care facilities because the hospital refuses to let them go because they've got ulterior motives in terms of, well, we know this person's sitting on this X amount of assets, and if we keep them within our system and tell them that they have to go into long-term care because there is no other way, then all that does is feed into the beast in terms of propping up that government system with the old care folks' homes. Right? Point is, are they in those rooms by themselves waiting for their one designated visitor who is being basically maybe, I don't know, it's, you know, like forced to be inoculated with something that is potentially very bad in light of the things that we're learning as we go outside of YouTube and Dr. God and Dr. Death, whatever she is, says to you, right? Like, they just, you know, like, do they understand what illegal organ harvesting really represents? You know, like, why are you not concerned? Do you think it will never happen to your family members because they're not, quote unquote, designated for that? Only the poor? And I reminded them that it's because I'm poor that it's happening, right? And that I can't find adequate help because I'm poor. And where my landlord said, well, go to the student, you know, whatever. I said, that doesn't work either because I did it with Uncle John, right? That's not what they're there for, okay? When I filed the lawsuit against Fraser Health Authority and CIBC Bank and went into the pro bono upstairs at the courthouse downtown, he was just shifting papers around and kind of prolonged things and tried to get me to go do something else, and it was right set from the beginning that nobody was going to help me because it's too much money, right? There are the buyers, and then there are the suppliers, right? I don't know how to get my landlords to care about that. So anyway, I didn't push it. I just said I have trial on September 19th of 2022, okay? Ask around, right? I said, if you go to your church, oh, we're not going, right? Because of what's been going on with the government. Okay, I said, well, then ask your son. And I told him, you have a handsome son, right? I told my landlady, his wife is very lucky to have him, right? Ask him. Maybe he knows, or his wife knows, right? Somebody that would be interested in helping me. Outside of that, people, I'm going to take this next month or so, finish up with what I'm doing, okay? Thank the Lord that I've been able to do this, right? I'll follow up with my landlords in terms of seeking out eye care. I'm glad they're motivating me for it. I don't expect them to pay for anything because if that's the case, I can pay for it, because before that I'd allow them to pay $400 for lenses. I'd be like, no, fix the light. No point in fixing the lenses if the light's fucking up the eyes, right? And I'm thinking, well, maybe they can't help me with a lawyer, but they've given me some time to get my paperwork together. And, see, I'm crying every day now, eh? They're making me emotional, right? What am I saying? I have a few months to get my paperwork in order and list it down in documents, like document list. after this is done, like I said, in the winter, right, I'm going to be making web pages and working on, and other nonprofit stuff, and working on ShaMay stuff. And of course, Uncle John's stuff is in there. It's already there, right? And if I have to, people, more than likely I'll still be living in this house. So for that, my landlords have helped me more than they think. Because if I can make it to court on September 19th, 2022, with or without a lawyer, with or without money, and show up for trial with my document lists in order, then if that happens, then because I'm here, right, in terms of they haven't sold their house yet, well, then that's, they're helping me. But in terms of this stuff, they help me to get motivated to maybe, when my doctor told me to take him to court, like that was just the most ignorant thing I've ever heard from any kind of doctor outside of what I seen what they did. I was going to say ShaMay, and then I thought of Uncle John, and like, I don't know. And you see, that's the thing. They don't face the kind of stuff that I've had to face with my family. And if they do, because my landlady was saying that she's even had problems with doctors, and she's had to go off and find a couple of doctors and then another doctor. And right now where she's at with the doctor, she's okay with that doctor. Right? But you have to remember, she gets a doctor that specializes with the elderly, geriatrics doctor, I think they're called. I don't know. Right? Where pediatricians are with children. But even she said she's been having problems with doctors not listening to her. So, and that's the thing. She's having problems with doctors not listening to her. Something happens. She ends up in the hospital. And then the government and their workers decide that nobody's going to go in and see her. And if they do, they have to jump through a million fucking hoops to do it. And then. Like, they don't see the similarity of how Uncle John was treated as to how people are being treated today. More reason to confront and hold to account as to what they did with Uncle John. Because not only did they break federal law under the Criminal Code of Canada, and this is what I told them today, they also broke provincial laws and mandates. This is where we need a lawyer, because a lawyer won't let them push him over as easily as they can push me over by saying, we'll take it to the cops. We're not going to let you go in front of a 3-panel judge for an appeal for a trial. No, we're going to tell you to go to the crooked cops. See, it's going to be a little harder to tell a lawyer to do that, because the lawyer will be like, no, Your Honor, under this section of this section, it says specifically that you're in a position to call an investigation, which he should have done in the first place. And he didn't, because the court discriminates people. That's why. Anyway, I just wanted you to know what's going on. So, I'm not used to all this fuzzy-wuzzy love stuff. I said, well, I love you too. Right? She kind of reminds me like my grandlady. Like my grandma. Like my grandlady. She is my grandlady. But, we got Pastor Granny. Right? I'm fond of her. Well, I respect her courage and her perseverance and whatnot and determination. And she's 70. And then, I obviously respected my own grandmother, because if I never did, I wouldn't be feeling the feelings that I'm feeling now. And I've already told my landlord, your wife reminds me of like my own grandmother. you know, just with the whole being of her, right? And, you know, you being in a situation with them for going on, I guess now, 11 years I've been here? Or is it 12 years? I don't even remember anymore. 11. Yeah, it's 11 years. What do you call it? You know, she climbing up the tree to get the plums, and, well, she didn't this year because she just wasn't well. You know. And now she's kind of showing an interest in me for whatever reason. It's like fuzzy-wuzzy, right? And I'm not used to that fuzzy-wuzzy stuff. So it's been making me emotional because I don't want to be a burden on them people. I don't, you know. I'm kind of holding them back on selling their house and making their money, or, you know, making more rent money. You don't think that doesn't play on my emotions? It does. And then knowing that whatever my government has done is basically just, you know, made it worse in regards to when I go, that's what I get. You see that? You see the cement, you see the rain, you see the highway, that, you know. And when I know people, you see, that's the thing. When I know that if my government wasn't allowed to worm out of its responsibility as to how they manage their employees and to what means, oh, it'd be a different story. It'd be a totally different story. So I don't know if that makes them culpable because they choose to be naive and ignorant about it. Ignorant as in naive. They choose to turn a blind eye to the corruption in the community because they don't think it's going to happen to them or it won't affect them, and that it could never be them, and that they would never facilitate such activity, so therefore there's no reason to have an interest in, quote unquote, we'll just say medical kidnapping of the elderly, or, you know, the purposeful injury of infants at birth, or, you know, illegal organ harvesting, because I got it all on my plate, okay? You know? People like to live sheltered lives. So, at least I asked. That's right. I don't have to write it down now. I said just keep it on your mind from time to time. Ask around. Right? That's all you can do. In the meantime, I'm going to take this little time I've got and I'm going to make it work so that when I show up to court, right, all my document lists are in order, and it will be extremely hard for the judge to ignore me. That's the best I can do, people. Hopefully I'll have a bit of money. I do have some plans to take some of this shit out to the streets and rally the troops, get some signatures, maybe get some donations for court, to pay for the courtroom, right? Because that's what's required of me, okay? For those 10 days that I booked in for a trial, right? That's justice in Canada, okay? As I fight for the elderly, remember that. As I fight for the elderly, because it's more than just Uncle John, okay? As I fight for the children being born into God knows what that these workers are setting them up for, because some of them are getting a very short end of the stick, okay? We know that, right? And I fight for young people, regardless of their ethnic heritage. And I'm going to end it on this note, okay? Because we know what I'm doing. I'm doing spices, right? And so that their organs aren't pillaged out of their bodies, okay? Now, maybe my landlords can't wrap their heads around that because it's just too frightening for them, right? And ignorance is bliss, and so be it, right? But at least they're giving me an opportunity to be in this house until the trial, okay? Because I don't think they're going to be selling their house before then. And even if they do sell before September of 2022, whoever buys this place still has to give me some time to get the fuck out out to the street, because that's pretty much where I'm going to be going. And being that my landlords sold their house and maybe made their $2 million, that's when I'll ask again if they can help me to get a lawyer, okay? So that when I walk through the courthouse doors, I'm not walking in alone. And that's the way it's going to be, people. One way or the other, with or without a lawyer, okay? Justice for ShaMay, justice for Uncle John, justice for Ciera, justice for Amari, justice for Andre, okay? Justice for my family in general, and justice for everybody else in the province of British Columbia, Canada, who need it, regardless of their ethnic heritage, okay? I don't want to get into gender and, and age and blah. We already know that, okay? I have to take care of my family, and I'm trying to do that. And that's why I'll never drop the ball on them. I had to ask my landlord, since they were so adamant to offer me some help with something, okay? But, it's nothing I can't do for myself, really. And it's not their obligation to pay for my eyes. It's not. But now that they've got me on that bandwagon, they'll just keep nattering in my ears, right? And I'll just say, yeah, I went to the appointment. Oh, don't worry, it's all covered. Right? If I can spend this amount of money on beans and spices, I'm pretty sure I can find $400 in the next couple, 2-3 months and get this secondary lens and pay for it myself. That's not what I need, people. I need a lawyer. That's what I need. You see, I need a lawyer for Amari more than anything. And Andre. Okay, Tisha's grown, Marcane's grown, but Amari and Andre are orphans. And they're, I don't want to say damaged children, but they are, people. Because of what the public union sector has done to my family. So that's where my bigger fight is to make sure that when I'm gone, Amari and Andre are looked after and not have to be at the whim of government subsidies or government approvals, or if they have their budget, they get whatever it is that they need, especially for Amari. Yeah, I want Amari to have private care, if in terms of paying for it. He needs this, pay for it. If he needs more care in some other area, whatever it may be, we're lucky with Amari. He doesn't require nursing or anything like that, right? But when he gets bigger, I don't know. I don't know how Tisha would manage. And if my son's working, how would my son manage? And Andre is, Andre's heart's in the right spot. He'll never leave Amari, but at the end of the day, I don't know if Andre would be able to do dishes every day and everything else that I do in a day in order to look after Amari. Andre will be there for Amari, will help with Amari. I don't know, but, there's going to have to be something. There needs to be something. It was the government employees who injured Amari. So therefore, it's the government's responsibility to make amends. More reason to show up at court.